ॐ दक्षिणास्य समारम्भा शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमा अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ता स्मर्या गुरुपरम्परा श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। परिज्ञानाश्रम श्रीगुरुशङ्कर परिज्ञानाश्रम शङ्कर सद्गुरु केशव वामन कृष्ण पाण्डुरङ्ग आनन्द परिज्ञान गुरु सद्यो जात शङ्कर सद्गुरु गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः। So we started the 14th chapter, Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga, which can be said to be almost a continuation of the 13th chapter, where Bhagwan Krishna is describing the Kshetra and the Kshetrajna of the 13th chapter in a little different way, with a little different connotation, from a different viewpoint. And here, Bhagwan takes the gunas or the natural inherent characteristics that are found in the Kshetra or Prakriti to be only belonging to the Prakriti. That means, whatever are the gunas, the natural characteristics are belonging to the Prakriti, they belong to the matter principle. And these gunas in no way actually affect the Kshetrajna or Atma. At the same time, these Prakriti gunas can bind an individual. Bind in the sense what? They can influence the individual. And what kind of an influence can it be? The influence depends upon whatever type of guna is predominant. Therefore, here, guna, normally we say guna is an attribute or we call it a quality, a guna. But in this chapter, Bhagwan Krishna has a different paribhasha, a different connotation for this word called as guna. Guna is that which can strongly influence an individual. Now, the sattva, rajas, and tamas being the three inherent characteristics or the three intrinsic gunas of Prakriti. It is very necessary that the Prakriti or matter principle has these three gunas because to convert itself or to project a universe, to project a jagat, these three gunas are absolutely necessary for Prakriti. And these three gunas, sattva, rajas, tamas, were described in the order of subtlety to grossity by Lord Krishna. Out of the three gunas, though they belong to the matter principle, out of the three gunas, sattva is the subtlest, subtler than the other two, whereas tamas is considered to be the grossest, and rajas is something which is in between the two. And one more important thing which Lord Krishna says here, and what our scripture says, all the effects or the karyas of Prakriti, all the products of Prakriti will have all the three gunas, because whatever is the characteristic of the cause is present in the effect also. So, whatever is in the Karanam Prakriti, the three gunas effect, we find them in the Karyam also. Since this entire Jagat, including this body mind sense complex of all of us, being a product of Prakriti, being a product of matter principle, therefore, all the inherent characters or characteristics that belong to the Prakriti, that belong to the original primordial matter principle called as Maya or Prakriti, all these three gunas are present in all the products of matter, including our body mind sense complex. Therefore, now Bhagwan wants to explain that these three gunas, how they bind an individual jiva. These gunas do not bind the Atma. Atma or Kshetrajna is gunatita. That is what Bhagwan is trying to get to in this chapter. He's going to explain this Atma or Kshetrajna as the consciousness principle which is not afflicted or bound or tainted by the three gunas of the matter principle. Though the Kshetrajna and Kshetra are so closely connected with each other, still then the gunas of the Kshetra, the gunas of the characteristics of the kshetra do not affect the kshetrajna. The characteristics of the body mind sense complex do not affect, do not bind the Atma kshetrajna. Then what does it bind? It binds that whom I call as an individual. I, what do I say? I do this, I do that, I experience it. So I, the individual jiva, which considers itself to be the doer, the enjoyer, the experiencer. This jiva is what is bound by the three gunas. And Bhagwan, up to the ninth verse in the 14th chapter, described the three gunas independently, individually, and said that the subtlest of the three gunas, being sattva guna, yes, it is a guna which is preferable, because it is this guna that makes a person capable of seeing things clearly. This sattva guna makes a person capable of understanding what is taught. Therefore, there is a interest in knowing certain things, a clarity in understanding, a kind of happy disposition of the mind. And this kind of a disposition of the mind is ideal to learn anything, including Vedanta. Whereas rajas by itself independently is something which makes a person a ragatmaka, it is. That means what? It makes a person to propel into action. The person becomes activity oriented. It is necessary. Even to be activity oriented is necessary. We can't be always sattva pradhana. Rajoguna is also necessary for us to be active in the right places at the right time. But then, if I am more of a Rajoguna pradhana, all the time, if I am activity oriented, then that is also going to bind me. And he's talked about tamas, which is the grossest of the three gunas. And how does it bind? It binds a person by making this person's disposition that of a always a sleepy person, a lazy person, a person who procrastinates everything. The disposition of mind which is incapable of absorbing, learning anything new, a disposition of mind which is incapable of contemplating on something. Therefore, individually, each guna was described by Lord Krishna up till the ninth chapter as to individually what can each guna give as far as the disposition of the mind of an individual jiva is considered. We saw that up till the ninth verse of this chapter. Now, what Bhagwan wants to say is that, look, Arjuna, these three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas, they don't, occur independently of each other. They don't occur only one in each person. All of us, All of us, every jiva has all the three gunas. The only thing is, at certain times, a particular guna is more predominant. There is a prominence of one particular guna. Not only that, as an individual itself, as an individual by himself or herself, certain people are more sattva guna pradhana. That means what? Most of the time of their waking hours, they are mostly having a sattvic predisposition of the mind, which is capable of knowing things, learning things, remembering things, contemplating on things. It doesn't mean that they are inactive. It doesn't mean that they don't do any actions, but predominantly they are sattva guna pradhanas. There are certain individuals, most of the part of their waking hours may be more activity oriented. It does not mean that they do not have any sattva guna. No, all the three gunas are there. So, individual by individual also, a particular individual may be mostly sattva guna pradhana or mostly rajo guna pradhana or mostly tamo guna pradhana. That is one thing. Secondly, even in a sattva guna pradhana individual, for certain times of the day, in certain parts of the day, there are other gunas also which are manifesting. So, what Krishna says here is that a person may be most possibly or predominantly a sattva, rajo, or tamoguna pradhana jiva, and also every jiva, every individual at a certain time of the waking hours may be more sattva pradhana, more rajoguna pradhana, more tamoguna pradhana. It depends. That means what? We have this sattva, rajas, and tamas, these three gunas of Prakriti, which are occurring in every one of us in different permutations and combinations. They're there in different permutations. Sometimes this is high, sometimes this is low. It is like a constantly moving graph, what we call as a real time graph, that which is constantly moving. Every minute, every hour, I may have a different disposition of the mind. So, all the three gunas, they are all the time, together, but one guna is predominant, the other two are in the background. And this keeps changing. And throughout the day, every one of us have all these three gunas, being prominent at some time or the other. In that case, what is the reason to know which kind of a guna is more pradhana in me? It is necessary for us to know this because the more and more I am Rajoguna Pradhana, that is, the more and more time of my waking hours I spend in activities, whether they're necessary or not. Initially, they start as necessary activities, and ultimately, all these activities become like, it becomes like, a compulsion. I cannot sit quietly. I'm so Rajoguna Pradhana all the time, running around here, there, getting up, moving, shaking. I cannot sit quietly. So at the same time, I may be a tamoguna pradhana individual where I'm always sleepy, always trying to procrastinate, not interested in learning anything new, not interested in trying to know something. That also is not something which is very conducive to me. So what Lord Krishna wants to say in the next few verses is, Arjuna, try to understand and see, what kind of a pradhanyam of which guna you have. Because ultimately, a mumukshu, a jignasu bhakta, a person who wants to know me, Ishvara, the person who wants to understand this Atmajnanam that I am teaching you from the scriptures as this Bhagavad Gita, it is very necessary for this mumukshu to have more of a sattva pradhana disposition of the mind. A sattva pradhana intellect is necessary for a jignasu bhakta, for a mumukshu to understand what is going on. To sit continuously for a few hours in a day, listen to Vedanta Shravanam. It requires a sattvic bent of mind. It requires a sattvic predisposition of the intellect. Also, to be contemplating over what I have studied, to do nididhyasanam, a very, very rajasic mind which is constantly moving here and there and propelling me into activities. Thinking is really not possible. Contemplation is not possible. Correct thinking is not possible. Same thing if I am Tamoguna Pradhana. Therefore, in the next few verses, Bhagwan Krishna talks about all the three gunas being together, but at a particular given time, one guna may be predominant and the other two may be in the background. And what happens when one guna is predominant and the other two gunas are in the background? For such a person, what is the type of disposition of the mind? There are repetitions here. Lord Krishna repeats a lot of things again and again here. But it is only for us to understand that all these changing gunas, frequently changing real time graphs of our gunas, belong to whom? This individual jiva, the prakriti, the body mind sense complex. That is the very purpose of Bhagwan describing the gunas in great detail. So, with this, summary of the previous session that we have studied, let's go to the 10th verse. The 10th verse of the 14th chapter now he says, Rajastamaschabhibhuya Satvam Bhavati Bharata Rajasatvam Tamaschaiva Tamasatvam Rajastatha. So here he's saying that Rajaha Tamaha cha abhibhuya Satvam Bhavati. Hey Bharata, hey Arjuna, there are times when abhibhuya means what? More than or crossing over. Sattvam abhibhuyah bhavati. Sattvam becomes predominant. Sattvam abhibhuya bhavati from what? Rajaha tamaschaha. Compared to rajas and tamas, there are times, when sattvam becomes predominant. Abhibhuyaha, rajaha, tamaha, abhibhuyaha, overriding the rajas and tamas, sattva guna becomes predominant. But Arjuna, sometimes rajaha, sattvam, tamaschaiva. Sometimes rajaha and sattva go into the background and the tamoguna becomes predominant. Next, tamaha, sattvam, rajas tatha. There are times when the tamoguna and sattva go into the background and the rajoguna predominates. Therefore, this keeps happening most of the time. Now, what is the need to know these things that one of them is predominant, in most of the times? Here, Bhagwan wants to say whenever there is a predominance of Sattva Guna and the Rajoguna and Tamoguna are in the background, what is it that happens to an individual? What is the nature of this individual? What is the predisposition of the intellect of this individual? So, verse number 11 here it says, सर्वद्वारेषु देहेऽस्मिन् प्रकाशः उपजायते ज्ञानं यदा तदा विद्याद् विवृद्धं सत्त्वमित्युत. Hey Arjuna, understand vidyad, okay? Vivriddham sattvam. May you understand that the sattvam is at the peak and the raja and tamo guna are in the background when at this particular time, in this particular disposition. How do you understand this? He says, Sarvadvareshu dehe asmin prakashah upajayate. That means Sarvadvareshu here means, see, don't, we should not interpret it exactly, the way the word Sarvacha. Sarvadvareshu, in all the gates of the body, Prakashaha upajayate, light starts appearing. No, it is not, it doesn't mean that. Prakashaha upajayate means all the Sarvadvareshu means all the five Jnanendriyas. The Jnanendriyas, the five Jnanendriyas are the dwaras or the gates for understanding and learning something along with the mind. So all these dwaras, the five Jnanendriyas and the mind and the intellect in this body are receptive. Prakashaha upajayate means they're receptive. Receptive to what? Receptive to learning, receptive to seeing things clearly, receptive to contemplate upon things, receptive to see yathatmyam of something, things as they are. more capable of understanding. Therefore, jnanam yada tada. Okay, jnanam means that is a disposition where knowing or understanding happens. Whether it's a Laukika Vidya or whether it is a Paramarthika or Atma Vidya. Now, this is the time when the sense organs and the mind and intellect are absolutely open to receiving, to learning whatever is being presented before that. So, when you are in this kind of a disposition where you're able to understand, grasp, learn whatever you're reading, whatever you're listening intently, there is an intense concentration on what I'm reading or listening, and I'm able to understand what is going on very clearly. May you understand, Arjuna, that here at this time, Sattva Guna is the Pradhana Guna. That is Tamaha Rajascha Abhibhuya. That is actually keeping the two in the background, and it is manifesting itself in a predominant form. May you understand that. That's why, sometimes, it's a common experience with all of us. We are reading something. It may be a very simple thing we are reading. We may be reading even a novel or a newspaper article, something like that. Sometimes, I read a paragraph and I don't feel that I have understood it. I read it again. I may not understand something. After some time, I read the same paragraph or the same news item. Suddenly, I understand what it means, which I did not understand earlier. That is because probably at that time, I was not Sattva Guna Pradhana. I was reading it, yes, but then the impact of it, the yathatmyam of it, what really had to be absorbed, I didn't absorb because at that time, probably I was Rajoguna Pradhana or Tamoguna Pradhana Jiva. So now in the next verse, in the 12th verse, Bhagwan explains, if at a particular given time you are more Rajoguna predominant and your Sattva and Tamoguna are pushed to the background by Rajoguna, then in such a situation, what happens? That is what is going to be told in the 12th verse by Lord. He says, Lobha pravritirarambha कर्मणामशमः स्पृहा रजस्येतानि जायन्ते विवृद्धे भरतर्षभ. Okay, rajasya vivriddhe. When the rajoguna is vivriddha, when rajoguna is predominantly shining, pushing the sattvaguna and the tamoguna to the background, hey Bharatarshaba, hey Arjuna, what is happening at that time? There is a pravritti or an activation of the body mind sense complex towards an activity. There is a sudden interest, there is a sudden propelling oneself into activities. Karmanam pravrittaha, karmani pravrittaha. That means suddenly one wants to do something. One wants to get up from wherever he's sitting, not able to concentrate, not able to meditate, not able to do nididhyasana. I get up and start doing something. So there is a pravritti. I'm pushed into pravritti of doing something. I start doing something. Karmanam arambaha, pravrittihi arambaha. And what kind of a pravritti is it? And for what purpose? There is for lobha. Lobha means what? Lobha here means actually want something. You know, I want something. I don't have something. I want something. Somebody else has it. I all the time think of what my neighbor has. I don't have. We used to have one very nice ad earlier. Owners, neighbors envy, owners pride. So this is that anything which creates envy in me and creates the desire to want that which somebody has, which I don't have. Somehow I have to get it. I have to think of how I can get it. This is what is called as lobha. And it gives me what? Ashamaha, karmanam ashamaha. Ashamaha means disturbed mind. Vichalita, chanchala mind. The mind is not quiet. The mind is not capable of absorbing what is there. The mind is so much moving around chanchala, vichalita. There is no naishchalyam of the mind. Whereas a sattvaguna pradhana, chitta naishchalyam is there. Whereas a rajoguna pradhana individual, all the time there is a vichalita manaha, antakarana is all the time moving here and there, wanting this, wanting that. There is a spriha, the last word in the second line, spriha, longing. So whenever I find a disturbance and constant movement of the mind, and we say, I don't know, somehow I am disturbed, not able to concentrate on anything. And what do I say? I am disturbed. Actually, I, the Atma, I am not disturbed. There is a disturbance in the mind. There is a disturbance in the intellect, which is all the time trying to be pravritta in something, to get something, to get hold of something, or to get rid of something. There is a longing, spriha, and there is a pravritti. There is all the time that feeling something is whipping me, something is driving me into action. And Arjuna, understand that when that is what is happening to you, when you are in that particular situation, understand that no amount of knowledge, no amount of even the best of the teachers may not be able to convey whatever he or she has to convey, because your mind is disturbed and it is not receptive. So may you know, Bharatarshaba, hey Arjuna, may you know that this is the disposition of the mind when you have a predominance of Rajoguna and the Sattva Guna and Tamo Guna are in the background. Now we have to come to the third one. What is the third one? That is the Tamo Guna. And what is that? That is predominant. Okay. Tamaha is predominant. Rajaha Sattvam cha abhibhuya. That is, it is overriding the Sattva Guna, overriding the Rajoguna, and predominantly manifesting at that particular time as Tamoguna Pradhana. Then what is my predisposition? How am I disposed? What is it that I feel and how am I? What is it that at that moment I am? He says, Aprakasho pravrittischa pramado moha eva तमस्येतानि जायन्ते विवृद्धे कुरु नन्दन. You see a pattern here, correct? In the 11th verse, okay? Jnanam, that is tamaha, sattvam vivriddham. Sattvam vivriddham, he says. Here, rajasya vivriddhehe, in the 12th verse, he says. In the 13th verse, he says, tamasya vivriddhehe. Vivriddhehe means when it is predominant. It is more than the other two. It is pushing the other two into the background. Then what is my nature? He says, aprakashaha. Aprakasha means it is basically a state of ignorance. I am not able to really understand whatever agrahanam. That is, I don't know. I am not able to really understand it at all. There may be little bit of wrong understanding, at least in Rajoguna Pradhana, time. But here it is aprakasha. What did he say in the 11th verse? Prakashaha sarvadvareshu upajayate. That means all the sense organs of knowledge, jnanendriyas, and the mind and the intellect are open to learning. That was what was said when there is Sattva-guna pradhanyam. Now, what does he say? When Tamoguna pradhanyam is there, aprakashaha, the sense organs, that is what the jnanendriyas and the mind, the antakarana, are literally closed gates. They are closed to learning anything new. We find that always, a person looks blank, I'm talking something, you know they're just blank, looking somewhere. They ask the same question again. They don't know what was talked about. They talk something irrelevantly after that. What does it mean? It means that it is a tamoguna pradhana, which requires to be told again and again and again, bringing the attention of the person back. Listen, listen, come back, look, this is what I'm trying to tell you, listen to this. So this is that aprakasha. Apravritti. Apravritti means not even interested in any kind of an activity. Simply sitting like a lump, not doing anything, not interested in learning, not interested in doing anything, just lazing away, absolutely inert, inertia. These are all the symptoms of when I am tamoguna pradhana. And all of us face this sometime or the other. It's not that any one of them is good or bad or whatever. What Lord Krishna is trying to say is, which of these gunas is more, relevant for a mumukshu? If I want to learn this Atmajnanam, if I want to understand Kshetra Kshetrajna, then I have to be more Sattva Guna Pradhana. And I have to assess myself as to what am I most of the times? Most of the times, what am I? Am I Sattva Guna Pradhana Jiva? Or am I Tamo Guna Pradhana or a Rajo Guna Pradhana? And at present, if I'm Rajoguna Pradhana, let me not even bother to listen to Vedanta at this time, because I know I will not be able to take it, see the Yathatmyam of it. And if I'm sleepy and if my eyes are closing, if I'm falling asleep when somebody in front of me is teaching me Vedanta, it is better that I say, no, I cannot understand, I'm sleepy, I'm not able to grasp it at all. So, where do I stand? It is for me to understand my disposition. It is not to judge anybody else. We many times say, oh, that fellow is a very tamoguna, he is a tamasic individual, oh, he is a very rajasic individual. It is not meant to judge others. All the three gunas are there in all of us all the time. Only the thing is, one of them is predominant. And when one of them is predominant, what is the disposition of me? What is it that how do I behave? What are my characteristics when a particular guna is predominant? And which of these gunas, when predominant, are conducive for me to learn something as a mumukshu? Which is the guna predominant which is necessary for me to do something creative, to do something which is necessary to be done? So if I'm able to understand myself, then probably I'll be able to distribute the activities of the day in such a way that I do the right thing at the right time. Then I'm not wasting my energies, I'm not wasting my time in trying to grasp something at that moment when it is not possible. So, what Krishna is trying to say is, may you understand, Arjuna, when there is a vriddhi of sattva guna, what kind of an intellect do you have? A receptive intellect. When there is a vriddhi of rajoguna, what kind of an intellect and predisposition do you have? You have the, an intense desire to be active, to be doing something. And when you have the vriddhi of tamoguna, what is it? Neither you are interested in any activity, nor are you interested in learning anything. Better to close your eyes and go to sleep and let the tamoguna move away. And if so, what am I most of the time? And how can I become? How can I do? What kind of a sadhana should I do to convert myself, convert this intellect, this jiva, this individual from a tamoguna pradhana individual to a sattvaguna pradhana individual? If I am a mumukshu, if I'm not a mumukshu, if I'm not interested in atmajnana, it makes no difference. But if I'm really a mumukshu, and if I want to really understand what is being told in the shastra, then it is necessary for me to become predominantly a sattva oriented individual for a large part of the day, so that I can spend that much time on Vedanta Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasanam. So, this is for us to analyze and identify ourselves as to where we stand. Then, in the next three verses, Bhagwan says now, okay, this is about during the day. Now, supposing a person dies, when you die, you know, if a particular guna is pradhanam at the time of death, what kind of a gati this jiva will have? What kind of a gati? Gati means what? Where is the trajectory? Where is this jiva going to move? Okay, where it is going to go, depending upon what is the state of the mind at the time of death. That is what is going to be talked about in the next three verses. So let's see the 14th verse of the 14th chapter. What does he say? Yada sattve pravriddhe tu pralayam yati deha bhrit tadottam lokan amalan pratipadyate. So here Bhagwan says a deha bhrit. A deha bhrit means the one who is, the one, a jiva with the body, a deha bhrit, the one who is, the jiva within this body. When the jiva is leaving the body, at the time of death. Pralayam yati means when the jiva is leaving the body, and yada sattve pravriddhe, when I leave this body, sattva guna pradhana. Okay, when I'm dying, when this jiva is dying, when not I means not the atma, when the body is dying and when the jiva is leaving the body, if the jiva is sattvic, sattva oriented, that is happy predisposition. No worries about what will happen to people after I die. This has not happened, that has not happened. That kind of a disturbed mind, when it is not there, when it is a sattva pradhana jiva, at the time of death, what happens? Tada uttama vidam lokan amalan. It is said that such a jiva goes, or such a jiva travels to higher lokas. What are these higher lokas? Maybe deva lokas, pitru loka, depending upon whatever karma and upasana I have done. It may be any higher loka because they're all punya krita lokas. This sattva oriented, sattva predominant mind at the time of death leads me to the higher amalan lokan, purer lokas, higher lokas. Remember one thing, if I have to die with sattva pradhana intellect, unless I am most of the time sattva pradhana, will suddenly at the time of death my intellect will it become sattva pradhana? No. See, we saw that in the eighth chapter, isn't it? Whatever is the last thought that comes at the time of death, you know, that last thought is the one which really determines my trajectory to where I am going. And if the last thought is something of a sattva oriented thought, if I have to be thinking of Bhagwan, if I have to be thinking of Ishvara, if I have to be thinking of whatever I have learned of this jnanam, then this sattva pradhana intellect or this sattva pradhana jiva should have been there, should have been practiced earlier also. Suddenly I can't say, okay, doesn't matter. Now I am a very rajasic, tamasic person. Let me see at the time of death, I will become sattvic. That is not possible. That is why let us watch ourselves now, here and now, as to what kind of a predisposition are we in predominantly. Are we all the time worrying about things? Are we all the time having this mind confused, running here and there that, oh, this should happen, this should not happen, why this is happening, why that is happening? If all the time that disturbed mind, Rajoguna Pradhana mind is there, then at the time of death, it is the same Rajoguna is going to be predominant. And what will happen? Sattva doesn't come. So he says, if you are a Sattva Pradhana individual and you die when the Sattva is predominant, then the Jiva travels to higher lokas, Amalan Lokan, purer and higher lokas it travels. How do you know? If you say, this is, we have to trust the Shastra. Krishna is saying this, our Shastras are saying that there is something called as a Gati. We have seen that Shukla Gati, Krishna Gati, you know, how the Jiva travels after the Jiva separates from this physical body. We have already seen that in the eighth chapter. Therefore, this is the Shraddha, because this is what the Shastra explains. This is not something that I have seen or I know, but this is what the Shastra tells me. This is what Lord Krishna tells me in the Bhagavad Gita, which he has culled out from the Shastra. He told me the same thing in 8th chapter also. Now he's telling me the same thing here in the 14th chapter also. So in the 15th verse, in the next verse, he says, Rajasi pralayam gatva karma sangishu jayate tatha pralinastamasi mudhayonishu jayate. So a predominantly Raja Guna Pradhana individual at the time of death also is most likely to be Rajoguna Pradhana. Correct? Can't be suddenly different at that time. Rajoguna Pradhana. At that time, what happens? Where is the Gati? What is the Gati? What is the travel of this Jiva? Karma Sangishu Jayate. Who is a karma sangi? A human being is a karma sangi, correct? Karma sangi, the one who connects itself, a jiva which constantly connects itself to some action. Oh, I should do this, I should do that, I should not this, I should not do that. What will they do when I die? So right now only let me do whatever has to be done. Right now only let me finish off everything. Could plan, doesn't matter, but it may not happen. So all the time karma sanga. It is a human being, a human jiva, which is constantly connected to karma. Therefore, a Rajoguna Pradhana individual will be born again in Manushya Loka, Karma Sangishu, along with other human beings, where he can continue to do karma. Keep on doing this, keep on doing. There is no limit. You can do anything, any amount for anybody. There is no limit for that. He'll keep on doing that. Karma sangishu jayate. Comes back into this manushya loka. Tatha pralinaha tamasi. The one who dies when the tamoguna is pradhana. Of course, whole life he has been a rock like person, inert, lazy, procrastinator, not doing what one has to do. Pramada alasya nidra. Do you remember we saw that in the last time? What are the characteristics of a tamoguna pradhana individual? Pramada, neglect of what is to be done, not done. Then alasya, always lazy. Nidra, always sleeping. Sleeping in the wrong places at the wrong times. Wherever the person sits, he is willing to go to sleep. So this person, a tamoguna pradhana person, at the time of death cannot be anything else. He is going to be tamoguna pradhana. And such a person, such a jiva, when it leaves the physical body at the time of death, mudhayonishu jayate. The jiva is reborn in a lower loka. It may be an animal, he may be born as a plant, he may be born as asuras, any of them, where, the person is, need not do anything, like in animals. Actually, so much tamas. You take a buffalo, for example. What is that? It may be sitting in the middle of a road. There may be, people honking. It just doesn't bother. It doesn't have to do anything. Tamo guna pradhana. There is one interesting story where it seems three people were, in olden days, there used to be these dharamshalas where people who traveled could rest in the night in certain places. There would be this kind of chatras which were built. It says there were three people who were sleeping one night in one of these, wayside chatras. And suddenly, this person who is a sattva oriented person, suddenly he woke up and saw that the neighboring houses were on fire. The village was on fire. He heard the noises and woke up. So what did he do? He first said, okay, now this is the thing. My duty is first to wake up the other people and then do whatever has to be done. So he woke up the other two and tried to, get hold of his things and planned, and he tried to leave. There was this Rajoguna Pradhana individual who woke up, started shouting, screaming, oh, what to do, how will I do this, that, this, that. He did not think of what is to be done because the disposition of mind is not there to understand. Pravritti, but what kind of a pravritti? What kind of an action? An action which will only give more confusion. So he went on running here, there, doing everything. He didn't do what was necessary to be done to get out of the place. It seems that the Tamoguna individual still was sleeping. With all this commotion, with all these Rajoguna Pradhana individuals running around and shouting and screaming, nothing woke him up. He was sleeping. And this fellow woke him up and said, look, the village there, the neighboring houses, I can see fire. Get up, get up. I believe this Tamoguna individual, Pradhana individual, Nidra Alasya Pramadi, he said, let it come here, then I will think what to do. It is still there in the neighborhood, isn't it? It is not come here, no. This this Dharmashala is not affected yet, isn't it? Don't worry. If you are there, you tell me. When it starts burning this place, then I will get up and I'll see what to do. Okay, so that's a story normally given as to what is the disposition of a sattva guna, rajoguna, tamoguna individual. And it is said that a person who's a tamoguna pradhana individual and who dies means what? The body dies and the jiva leaves the body. Where does this jiva travel? It is born again in a mudha yoni. Mudha yoni means in the lower, fields, or as lower jivas, like that of a animal jiva or a plant jiva, where there is no scope for any kind of a sattva to learn anything, not possible. So this was the three verses talked about what kind of a travel the jiva will have when one of the gunas is predominant. Now in the next three verses, Bhagavan wants to talk about what is the karma phala, what is the phalam here and now in this life. What is the phalam that he enjoys? What is it that a Sattvaguna Pradhana individual enjoys, the phala of his Sattvaguna Pradhanyam? What is the phalam of Rajoguna Pradhanyam? What is the phalam of Tamoguna Pradhanyam, which this person enjoys here and now before death? Okay, so see how Bhagwan Krishna has explained these things step by step by step. First, he talked about the three gunas, individual characteristics of the three gunas. Then he said, what is the disposition of an individual who has one of these gunas predominant, the other two in the background. Then in the next three verses, Bhagwan said, such individuals, when the death comes, when the jiva leaves the physical body, what happens to a person who is Sattvaguna Pradhana, Rajoguna Pradhana, Tamoguna Pradhana Jiva? Now in the next three verses, Bhagwan wants to talk about what is it that such individuals get here and now. What is it that they enjoy here and now? What is it that they get the phalam of their particular guna pradhanyam here and now? So in the 16th verse, Bhagwan says, Karmana sukrutasyahuhu satvikam nirmalam phalam rajasastu phalam dukkham ajnanam tamasah phalam. So what is the phalam here and now? Karmanaha sukrutasya ahuhu. All the karmas that a sattvic individual does are well done karmas. Sukrutaha. Sukrutaha means well done. The right thing that has to be done. Because the Sattva-guna Pradhana individual understands the yathatmyam, the reality, clearly perceives what is it to be done, how it should be done, and very clearly does whatever has to be done. Therefore, it is sukritam. Sukritam means well done. Karmanaha sukritasya ahuhu satvikam nirmalam phalam. So anything done well gets a good phalam, is it? Isn't it? Therefore, satvikam nirmalam phalam. So the phalam he gets for whatever karma he does with sattva guna pradhana, pradhanyam, prattva guna pradhanyam. The results, the phalam in this janma, here and now, are also sattvika phalas. That which will increase his sattvic predisposition. The karma becomes sattvic, the phala becomes sattvic. Therefore, this individual is able to actually, become more and more and more sattva pradhana, which is absolutely essential for every individual jiva who's a mumukshu, who's a tivra mumukshu, who wants to understand what is this kshetram, what is this kshetrajna, what is Bhagwan trying to say in this Bhagavad Gita, what is it that the Shastra is telling. Let me understand this. This is, the disposition where a person, a sattvic person doing sattvic karmas gets the drishta phalam, that is whatever has to happen now as a result of the karma done now, also is a sattvika phalam. And this actually perpetuates the sattva in this person. He becomes more and more and more sattva pradhana. Whereas rajasastu phalam dukkham. Dukkha is the phalam. Why? When you're Rajoguna Pradhana, as we saw in the 12th verse, what is it? It is praha, longing, lobha, greed to have something or the other, pravritti, constantly running after doing something, constantly in action. For such a person, naturally, dukkha is the phalam. Here in this life only, bahulayasam, one of the Upanishads says, this kind of an individual, bahulayasam, all the karma that he does only gets him ayasa. He only becomes tired at the end of the day and nothing has been achieved. This person has run around everywhere, done things all the time active, but what has it given me? Nothing really. If I look at it today, what have I? Nothing. It has given me only ayasa. It has given me only a kind of tiredness of the body, mind, sense complex. Therefore, it is bahulayasam. So it is phalam dukkham. Dukkha, because I may not get what I want. All the time I'm running around out of greed, out of spriha, to attain something, to get something, getting attached to that. But then ultimately, whatever I'm doing it for, I may not get the results that I'm desiring. Nothing that I want to happen with all this may happen. Therefore, it is only going to give me dukkha. Dukkha sangena badnati. He said that nibadnanti dukkhena dukkha sangena. He said in the earlier, Rajoguna binds you to dukkha. And then ajnanam tamasaha phalam. A tamoguna pradhana individual is, he remains ignorant as he was. He remains ignorant. No activity, no desire to do anything, no desire to learn anything, remains, inactive, remains nidra alasya pramada rupena. So this is the drishtaphalam. Drishtaphalam means what I get right now and here for all the karmas that I do. See, if I do something nicely, well, the very satisfaction of having done that nicely is the drishtaphalam. Correct? Means immediately I know that. If today I have, taken a good session, I don't know what the adrishtam is, what is going to come after so many years or in my next life, I don't know. But at the end of the session, there is a feeling of sukritam. Yes, whatever I have done today, I have done it properly. Whatever I have said today, pramanataya I have said. Whatever I have said today, I have studied it, properly mulled over it, done enough of Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasanam. And given that, to the best of my ability, I have done a good job. It is not out of ahankara, but then that drishta phalam of a satisfaction of having done something well, something properly. This is what is the drishta phalam that I get here and now. But I run around here and there, and at the end of the day, what have I achieved? Nothing. I have lost my peace of mind, but nothing has been gained, and this is dukkham. Whereas a tamoguna pradhana, I don't care. This person doesn't care what he has done, what he has not done, what he has missed, how his predisposition has affected the others. No problem. No drishtaphala, no adrishtaphala. No drishtaphala also he is not able to see. Array, how much my inertia is affecting other people. What I should do, I am not doing. How it is troubling others. Even that thing he is not able to understand. Therefore, here Bhagwan says that this is the phalam, immediate, here and now, for this particular type of a predisposition you have here and now. And next, he summarizes the whole thing again in the 17th verse by saying, Sattvat sanjayate jnanam rajaso lobha yevacha pramadamohau tamasaha bhavato jnanamevacha. So Arjuna, I'll summarize again for you. The more and more sattva guna pradhana you are, that connects you to knowing, that connects you to knowledge, that connects you into understanding, that connects you to absorbing things. Whereas rajaso lobha yevacha, the more and more rajoguna pradhana you are and the other two are in the background, Arjuna, it is only going to propel you towards, lobha. That means what? I want this, I want this, I want to do this, I want to do this. If I don't do this, who will do this? If I do this, this one will be happy. If I don't this, what will they do? If I die without doing this, what will my children do? Probably they'll do much better than when I'm there. But then all the time thinking, all the time mental activity, physical activity. Rajas will give lobhaye vacha, pramada moha, pramada, neglect, neglecting what has to be done, moha, confusion, all the time confused, not even bothered, tamasaha, bhavataha ajnanamevacha. And this tamas pradhana individual will ever remain in ajnanam, ever remain in ajnanam. There is no question of his, no interest also in trying to become sattva pradhana individual, remains in ajnanam. And therefore, again, Kincha, again, Bhagwan Krishna wants to stress the same thing because Arjuna is right now fighting a war. And at present, he has this particular moha, this particular vishada. And Bhagwan wants to make it clear to him, look, Arjuna, whatever right now confusion that you're going through, whatever dukkha you're going through, is nothing but the effect of these three gunas. Okay. And being a Kshatriya, your guna, Kshatriya guna is Rajoguna Pradhana individual. But right now at this time, you are a Shishya. You have accepted me as a guru. You have surrendered to me and you are wanting to know. So right now, though you are basically Kshatriya Rajoguna predominant person, at this moment you are a Sattva-guna Pradhana individual. You are Anagha. That's what he addressed him. Hey Anagha. Therefore, Arjuna, listen to what I am saying. Because this is what you have to learn to see yourself as to what you are and how you are going to really make yourself a Sattva-guna Pradhana individual. If you are interested in getting rid of this samsara, if you are interested in knowing what is this kshetra, what is this kshetrajna, if you are interested in knowing who am I, this kshetrajna, what is this real I, am I with these all these three gunas, who is it that is getting affected by these gunas, who is it that is getting bound by these gunas? If you want to know it, Arjuna, this is what you have to know. And again, now we can say the last verse of Bhagwan describing all these three as the Kshetra Gunas, which do not belong to the Kshetrajna. He sums up the entire thing in the 18th verse. He says, Urdhvam gachanti sattvasthaha madhye tishtanti rajasaha jaghanya guna vrittastha adho gachanti tamasaha. So in every way, whether you consider this life, whether you consider your travel after death, your next life, in whichever way you consider, Arjuna, urdhvam gachanti sattvastaha. A sattva guna pradhana individual always, goes up. In the sense what? Goes up in the sense what? He becomes more and more capable of learning. He becomes a better person. Urdhvam gachanti. After death also, he goes to the higher lokas. Here and now in this present life also, the phalam that he gets makes him, propels him to more and more sattva pradhanyam. Therefore, in every way, a sattva pradhana individual moves upwards higher. Madhye tishtanti rajasaha. Madhye tishtanti. All the time, karma sangishu. We saw that in the previous verses. Remains here, always involved in karma. With manushas. Can't be by oneself. Always wants the sangha of others. Always wants to be in the company of others. Always wants to keep doing something. So, madhye tishtanti. They are neither growing, going up or growing, nor are they coming down. They continue to remain in the same situation, in the same thing, doing, not getting anything. They remain there. They come back also, in their further lives in such a situation. Jaghanya guna vrittastaha. That is this adhoguna, the grossest of the gunas. Jaghanya guna means the grossest of the gunas, which is the tamo gunaha. Adho gachanti. Adho gachanti means no scope for any kind of a growth. They remain there. Adho gachanti. Either they remain, they go down in the sense that neither do they progress, the jiva also in learning anything. Nothing. They just, more and more and more, they go down, they regress. So remember, Arjuna, that depending upon these three, you cannot avoid either of these gunas. All the three gunas are there in all of us. But then there is a choice for you. There is one thing you can do. You need not be in the vasha of any of the gunas. You have a choice in making yourself more of a sattva guna pradhana jiva and making yourself, to kind of progress. Progress towards what? In this Shastra, our progress is towards understanding Shastra. Material progress, we are not talking about. In the Shastra, the progress is that I progress to a state where this Shastra becomes relevant to me. I progress to a state where I understand what Shastra is telling, which helps me to get out jump out of this cycle of samsara. Therefore, urdhvam gacchanti. They progress, they grow. Sattva guna makes them grow. It makes them grow intellectually, emotionally, spiritually. There is a growth in sattva pradhana individual. Rajoguna pradhana individual remains where he is actively doing something, not but no growth as such. But whereas a tamoguna pradhana individual regresses more and more in this life, in all other lives. Therefore, these are the three gunas, Arjuna, and this is how they bind you. This is where they take you when this jiva leaves the body. This is what the phala they give you in this life, and also this is the way they will influence your growth as a jiva. With this, all that has to be talked about the prakriti and its three gunas and how they bind an individual have been talked about. Now from the next verse onwards till the end of the chapter, Bhagwan talks about this kshetrajna atma as gunatita. This kshetrajna atma aham gunatitah asmi iti, that is going to be explained in the last 9 verses, which we'll take up in the next session. ॐ नन्दन्तु साधका सर्वे विनश्यन्तु विदूषकाः अवस्थाशाम्भवी मेस्तु प्रसन्नोऽस्तु गुरुस्तदा सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखमाप्नुयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।